Hello, and welcome to a Carrier Management special broadcast. My name is Elizabeth Blosfield, and I'm your host and the Deputy Editor for Carrier Management. With Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's engagement dominating headlines, the buzz has gone beyond the rings and the romance, and people are asking what a wedding of this scale actually looks like behind the scenes. I was scrolling through my social media feeds last week, in fact, and a post stood out to me with one person asking, "Do you think Taylor Swift actually thinks about things like insurance?" While I can't answer that question, experts do say that one of the most overlooked but critical parts of any wedding, especially a high-profile wedding like this, is insurance. Protecting a multi-million-dollar event with celebrity guests, heightened security needs, and complex logistics requires more than just a standard wedding policy. So I'm joined by an expert in this space, Stephanie Waldron, Senior Vice President of K&K Insurance's Events and Attractions Division. She's a 38-year veteran of K&K, an Aon company specializing in sports, leisure, and entertainment. From underwriting motorsports to ensuring major events, she's seen it all, and she's here to break down what it takes to safeguard a mega wedding like this. Let's hear what she had to say. Hi, Stephanie. It's nice to meet you. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you, Elizabeth?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, thanks for taking the time to speak with me. I'm excited to have this conversation. It's kind of a timely sort of pop culture topic that we're relating to insurance. I'm excited to dive into it. But before we get to some of the questions, I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about yourself, your background and some of the work that you do at Aon.
I am a 38-year employee of K&K Insurance. We are an Aon company, and we're an MGU in the sports, leisure, and entertainment industry space. I've been an underwriter most of my life. I've worked in different departments of K&K, and we insure things like special events, which we'll be talking about today, but also sporting associations and teams. Motorsports is where we were founded. We insure health clubs, camps, and all kinds of things.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm so happy to be speaking with you. I think this is, a fascinating area of insurance, and it relates so well to this topic. So I'm excited to dig into some of your experience with it. And I guess just to start off, I know this is kind of in the wake of the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce engagement news, and everybody's talking about these high profile celebrity weddings. So what does an insurance policy for a mega wedding like this actually look like? And how does it differ from a traditional wedding policy?
Sure. I think a lot of us in the general public would buy more of an off-the-shelf type liability policy when we're having a wedding. Usually it's required by the venue to prove that there's liability coverage so that the lawsuits would go to the event holder or the wedding party rather than the venue. In this case, a high profile wedding will look much more like a big special event policy. There's probably broader coverage, and it really depends on this wedding or any other big wedding, the kind of activities or exposures that they have. So the coverage is likely broader, and then they probably buy much higher limits of liability because their net worth is so high and they want to have adequate protection.
Yeah, of course. And that makes a lot of sense. And I know there are probably also different risks to consider for, high net worth, high profile individuals. So what are some of the lesser known risks that couples in this position should be aware of, and how are those protected?
Sure. And risk-wise, I think before speaking to that, like every couple, whether they're high profile or, everyday people, I think they want the day to just be perfect, and that includes memorable, beautiful, special, all those great things. They sure don't want any bad memories associated with their event, whether that be injuries or accidents or things along that line. So depending what the event looks like and the kind of activities that they're going to have, the couple wants to make sure they have insurance protection that would cover them and protect them in the event of an injury that, let's say, it's related to transportation, if the couple decides to provide that for guests, for example. So they want basically to have coverage for the operations that they're going to include in their big day.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, I think everybody from the insurer to the couple, wants the day to go as smoothly as possible. And that's a good overview of what the couple should be looking for. But then on the insurance side as well, I guess from an underwriting perspective, what are some of the protections that you would recommend for a wedding of this scale?
Sure. And I would say the scale of an event like this, depending on what the couple envisions, but it could end up being, very large, very high profile over multiple days. It could include things like athletics, maybe Travis and some of his, friends want to have a flag football game or something that's out of the ordinary. Maybe the couple wants to include animal exposures, pony rides for children or amusement rides. Basically, anything they come up with that's in their vision that they can easily make a reality with, this couple in particular, but that they would find coverage that protected them against all the risks associated with the activities that they have. With an event like this, another consideration is the high profile guests. I don't know if there will be people from, the government, or obviously there'll be other celebrities, but they may not want just generic or general type coverage for, let's say there's a bad actor out there who would love to make news by causing, harm or something, an act of assailant or terrorism, something like that, God forbid. They may want to buy special coverage just because of their unique status. And that kind of coverage exists out in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's so interesting, all the things to take into consideration. And, obviously so many people are talking about this news. It's been a huge, topic of discussion ever since, the engagement happened. And I'm curious also what considerations or risks should be taken into account for such a public event, in terms of crowd control, members of the public who try to get close to or witness it, what should they be considering there?
Sure. And at K&K, we're kind of experts in ensuring clients that have large crowds, sports, leisure, and entertainment. So whether it's crowds or races or concerts or, sporting events, our clients are really good at transferring that risk most often, where they'll hire security companies that have their own liability coverage. They have the expertise to know how many people we need for this type of event, what kind of setup we need for the facility and or multiple facilities or venues that are used for a big event like this. So the client and or their event organizers are best served to find kind of a best-in-class security firm that will provide the appropriate protection for not just the couple and their guests and loved ones, but for those members of the public. They're a natural draw. So there will be people that try to get close if the details, are leaked or whatever the case may be. So a security firm that works to protect everyone, their bodies and their property and all that is clearly the way to go. And again, for the couple to have contractual protection from that security firm would be ideal.
Right. Yeah, that safety is so important. And that kind of leads into my next question too, because obviously nobody knows, where the wedding will take place, whether it'll be very private or very public, who knows. But is there a business interruption element for the location of the wedding if, it happens to disrupt businesses because of crowds or there are road closures or anything like that?
That's a really interesting question. And the sort of typical commercial property coverage with business income, there's a coverage included for civil authority, but it wouldn't really apply in a case like this. It applies more if there's like a covered peril that causes property damage at the venue. And then maybe the government or the authority would want to secure the premise to keep people safe and the property safe. And that wouldn't really be the case here. If an event like this, they're best served to find a kind of tailor-made, pun intended, endorsement for that situation. It may be covered on the event cancellation or wedding cancellation policy, or maybe, special coverage for that unique exposure.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's so interesting to have this discussion. I know that everybody's talking about their engagement. I'm sure that not everyone's first question was, how are they going to insure this wedding? But it was mine. It was top of mind for me. So I'm glad that we can be here for people who are wondering that. But then kind of zooming out, not just the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce news, but overall, how have you seen trends in how insurers are adapting coverage for celebrity weddings or, large scale private events recently?
Sure. I would say, not necessarily specific to weddings, which it's an important, question, but I would say just in general, in many industries, including special events and high profile events, the limits of liability that most carriers are offering are not quite as expansive as they used to be. So for example, one carrier, maybe if they were asked to insure an event like a large wedding, might say, sure, I'll put up 25 million of liability on that event. And in this day and age, due to nuclear verdicts and things like that, the litigious climate that we're in, a lot of carriers might say, I'll put up 5. Another carrier might say, I'll put up 5. And so the excess limit capabilities of any one market have changed. So that trend would maybe affect an event like this as well as other types of industries.
Yeah, it's interesting. The whole landscape and everything that you focus on at K&K is really fascinating. So thank you so much for taking the time to come here and break some of it down for us. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. When we think about weddings, whether it's Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's highly anticipated celebration or something a little bit closer to home, one of the biggest financial and emotional investments is not just the event itself, but it's the jewelry at the center of it. To help us unpack how couples can protect both the wedding and the jewelry, I'm joined by Deidre LeBlanc, Vice President of Specialty Products and Personal Insurance at Travelers. With 20 years of experience leading specialty lines, from boats and yachts to rental properties, and of course, weddings and jewelry, Deidre brings a wealth of expertise on how to safeguard these big life milestones. She'll walk us through why insurance should be top of mind early in the wedding planning process, how ring coverage really works, and what every couple can do to reduce stress and protect their big day. So let's hear what she had to say. Hi, Dee. It's great to be speaking with you today. How are you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thanks. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I think it's timely and it has to do with a sort of pop culture topic, which we don't always get to discuss in insurance. So I think it'll be a great conversation. And before we get into some of the questions, I was wondering if you could just start off with a brief overview of your background and some of the work that you do.
Sure. So my name is Deidre LeBlanc. I'm the Vice President of Specialty Products and Personal Insurance for Travelers. I've been here 20 years and we lead all sorts of specialty products. So yes, special events and wedding is one of them. Also boat, yacht, landlord, anything that's not your primary property or auto falls under specialty.
That's great. Well, I'm really happy that you're here to have this conversation because I know you have a lot of expertise in this topic. And I know that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's engagement has been making a lot of headlines recently. It's been, talked about all over social media. And I'm curious how a high profile event like this sort of spotlights the importance of both wedding and jewelry insurance, which I know are two of your focuses.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, it's so fun to get to talk about Taylor Swift and insurance in the same sentence. It doesn't happen often, right? But high profile engagements like Taylor and Travis's really underscore the importance of wedding and jewelry insurance. Even if you're not hosting a multi-million-dollar event, like I'm sure they will, weddings do involve substantial financial investments. The latest numbers show the average wedding costs over $30,000. And that includes things like venue, vendor deposits, high value jewelry, all those things that need protection against unforeseen circumstances. And that's where insurance comes in.
Yeah. And this is so interesting because like you said, not every couple is going to be planning a wedding at this scale. Obviously, I'm sure they have a huge team that's helping them. But even for, couples who are planning on their own, I know for my own wedding, insurance was kind of last on the list, something I didn't really think about with the planning process. So at what point in the planning process should most couples secure insurance?
Yeah. I mean, the number one thing I would say is early. It's crucial to secure insurance early because, again, it's really to help protect you against those unforeseen events. So you don't want to wait until there's a known weather event coming or something like that. You really want to get that insurance early. Ideally, couples should be looking at it and obtaining coverage as soon as they start making those significant deposits, purchases, such as booking your venue or buying your ring.
Yeah. And speaking of buying the ring, that's always an exciting part of the process for couples. And, Taylor Swift's ring is gorgeous, as we saw online. And I know that these are often, the most valuable and sort of sentimental purchases as well that couples will make for the wedding. So what should people know about insuring rings and how does jewelry coverage typically work in this scenario?
It's really important for people to understand that your typical homeowner's policy may not fully cover expensive jewelry against all types of loss. So this is where jewelry-specific insurance does come in. It typically protects against loss, theft, or damage of an engagement ring, which, as you said, is something a cherished investment, and you want to make sure that that's protected without worry. It is important. I would recommend that everybody gets an appraisal to appropriately determine the ring's value and ensure that the coverage limits that you're getting meet your needs.
Yeah, that's good advice for all couples. And I know that Travelers has some data about this as well. Its 2024 claims data shows that vendor issues, illness or injuries, or even extreme weather can cause wedding disruption. So what should couples be thinking about there, and what should they take into consideration regarding, event disruption or cancellation when it comes to their wedding?
Yeah. And again, this is where I'd come back to, kind of getting that insurance early, because those kind of disruptions are really what wedding insurance is all about. Couples should consider coverage for non-refundable deposits, rescheduling costs, additional expenses due to those unforeseen disruptions and cancellations. And knowing that you've got that covered really helps give you peace of mind so that you can go focus on having fun at your celebration and your event. One other tip I would recommend is take your time and review all your contracts early. So you want to make sure you understand what you're agreeing to with your vendors and venues. Do not assume anything, and that will help you make sure that you've got the appropriate insurance coverage.
Yeah, and that's so important. You want to have fun and enjoy your wedding. So insurance can sort of take care of some of those stress factors. And then obviously at, a higher profile wedding like this, I don't know, it hasn't been announced whether Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are going to have a public wedding or more private. But I would imagine that one thing that comes into consideration is crowd control, or, if people show up and try to get into the space who aren't invited. So how do insurers kind of think about those types of risks with higher profile or, public weddings?
Yeah. And obviously, as you mentioned, those are not common scenarios probably for every wedding, but the point of insurance is all about protecting you should those unforeseen things happen. So insurers would absolutely take into consideration and assess the risk related to security measures, potential liabilities from crowd control, impact of protesters on event safety. So all of that would come into play. I would recommend, if your event is going to carry risk, those type of risks, that you likely want to work with an insurance agent who can help assist in guiding you through your specific insurance needs, because you may require additional coverage or multiple insurance policies in that scenario. So ask your agent, ensure you understand what the policy covers, and don't make assumptions.
Yeah, don't make assumptions is good advice as well. And then I'm also curious, kind of on the back of that, does business interruption come into play at all for things like road closures or, interruptions to businesses in the city where a wedding like that is taking place, since it's such a large scale, high profile event?
Yeah, there would probably be multiple factors kind of at play in that scenario, like not only related to the wedding insurance policy you have, but probably also insurance for the homes and businesses nearby. So again, in a scenario like that where you've got multiple risks going on, I would recommend talking to an insurance agent who can really help you understand what are the specific needs and risks that you're going to have for your event, and make sure that you've got coverage for that.
Yeah, makes sense. And we've covered a lot through this conversation so far. Obviously, as we mentioned at the beginning, most couples won't have a mega sized or high profile wedding like this. So, given everything that we've discussed, what sort of practical steps should every couple be taking alongside their insurer to, protect their big day and reduce some of that stress that we talked about?
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to be probably a broken record here. I think my best tips would be obtain insurance early in the process. Take your time, review your contracts, ask questions, don't make assumptions, review your insurance policy. Make sure you fully understand what it covers and what it does not cover. Typical, tips, I would say, stay organized, keep your contracts and wedding documents all together, and make sure you get receipts, which will come into play if you do need to make a claim. I'd say, at Travelers, we talk about protecting the things that matter most and for our customers, and your wedding day is no different. So every couple, I think, can benefit from insurance, even if it's not a mega sized or high profile wedding. It ensures you've got peace of mind and reduces your stress.
Yeah, and that's a great framework for steps that couples can take. And then sort of last question on the insurance side, kind of zooming out to see the bigger picture. I'm curious how you see wedding and jewelry insurance evolving as, weddings are getting, as you said, more costly, more elaborate.
Yeah, I think wedding insurance and jewelry insurance is not unlike insurance that you'd have for your auto or property. The needs for comprehensive and customizable insurance solutions will continue to come into play here. Our product, the Wedding Protector Plan from Travelers, certainly is designed to address those evolving needs. So offering tailored coverage for your wedding at multiple price points that can adapt to the scale and size of your wedding and the needs of our customers. So I think the important thing kind of now and in the future is continuing to make sure that you've got those tailored solutions. These are unique risks. Every event is different, right? So you want to make sure that you fully, can cover the needs of the couple and their event that day.
Yeah, that's great. And somebody else I interviewed also used the term tailored solutions, which I love as a sort of pun for this conversation.
That's a good one. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, exactly. This has been a great conversation, so informative and so timely. So thank you again so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you. This was great.
Well, that's it for this special broadcast. I hope you enjoyed these interviews and learned a lot. I certainly did. I loved getting to talk about insurance with a pop culture twist. Feel free to email me at eblosfield@wellsmedia.com with any story ideas you'd like to see, and check out our other content, including special broadcasts like this at insurancejournal.tv. Talk to you next time.
The Risky Future Summit 2025. Don't miss out. Click the link in the description to sign up or apply to be a speaker for our Risky Future Summit 2025 before seats fill up.
The 2025 Insuring Cannabis Summit, now available on demand. Replay this info-packed conference all about the unique and fast-growing business of insuring cannabis, hemp, and CBD. This summit includes cannabis and beverages, risk management, employment, compliance, claims, legalization, and more. Don't get left behind in the cannabis beverage industry. Replay the event panels with top experts in cannabis. Hosted by Claims Journal's Don Jergler and Insurance Journal's Andrea Wells. To watch the replay and to view the entire list of speakers and sessions, visit insuringcannabissummit.com. A special thank you to our sponsors. Presenting sponsor CanAssure, and supporting sponsors CK Specialty and Copperpoint.